Lynn Hubbard and Christine Tissell are both part of a TAFE program which helps people with learning disabilities to gain valuable work experience. They spend 20 hours a week working at the Regional Museum's coffee shop.
They've got good prospects after they've done this coffee shop course.
As part of Vocational Service Month, the Rotary Club of Newcastle Sunrise presented the TAFE with a special award today for providing such opportunities for the disabled.
The idea is to show other employers that there are benefits that they can obtain from employing people with disabilities.
A number of Hunter businesses were considered for the award. The newly established Art and Pottery School at New Lambton, which employs Jason Parkinson, was also commended. Rachel Proudman, NBN News.
The pack moved out of Nelson Bay straight into an 80km/h crosswind, whipping up Grahamstown Dam and breaking the spirit of the competitors. Yesterday's 187km leg was having an effect too, and by the time the riders hit Raymond Terrace, the field was starting to split. 16 riders were in the top group, including Wyong Shire's Darren Lawson. The army was on hand as the cyclists came up on Singleton into the main street, and there was barely a wheel separating them. Polish rider Krikchowik took the leg from Rob Compass and Darren Lawson. The pack then trickled over the line, some riders 29 minutes behind. Overall, German Royce leads the race from fellow countryman Ulrich. Australia's Hank Vogels is fourth. The riders race to a Raring power station tomorrow. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
These first-year students, most hope to sell their work, but under changes to the system, this course and many others could be dumped.
There's nothing been addressed for the craft areas, for the headwear areas, furnishing decor, pattern making. All of the other things that we teach through TAFE in fashion courses will not be available.
In 1995, funding allocation for TAFE will be taken over by the Australian National Training Authority, which will fund vocational courses. That is, those courses which lead to direct employment. Most fashion courses aren't regarded as vocational. Of the 99 colleges which teach fashion throughout the state, it's feared only 7 will continue to do so after 1994. Sue Conakey believes the 10,000 students statewide, who are mostly women, are being discriminated against.
I just don't like to think that the women in this state are given a raw deal, and I really believe if they haven't got access to fashion courses, then they are given a raw deal. The fact that our courses don't run on an apprenticeship level shouldn't mean that the women can't come and undertake training.
Fashion teachers around the state have launched a campaign to save the courses. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Lake Macquarie Council has been using several methods in its battle to control silt from urban runoff. However, it appears Mother Nature was right, with this artificial wetland established in Walters Park at Spears Point being hailed a success. Research by Newcastle University students Grant Metcalf and Damien Sullivan has found plant life in the pond helped control both pollution and sediment washed into the stormwater system, resulting in improved water quality for Lake Macquarie.
Basically what we're finding is that the inlet and compared to the outlet's producing much better results in phosphorus, nitrates and suspended material. So preliminary results show that it's functioning very well as a sediment control device and a pollution control device.
An alarming aspect of the research is that initial stormwater flows have the same pollution qualities as sewage. The project has had input from Lake Macquarie Council, several government departments and the Lakes Catchment Management Committee. Council is encouraged by the quality of water now being released into the lake. Glendale is the next area to benefit from the new approach, with the ponding system on Winding Creek.
Australia's Human Rights Commissioner Brian Burdekin says people affected by mental illness are among the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our community. His 3-year national inquiry has uncovered what he describes as serious breaches of human rights. In line with the government's policy of treating people with mental illness in the least restrictive environment, about 80% of these people now live in the community.
That the policy of deinstitutionalisation has failed for many thousands of Australians, and it will not succeed until it is accompanied by appropriate policies on housing and an adequate allocation of resources.
The Commissioner says the absence of suitable accommodation is the single biggest obstacle to the recovery and effective rehabilitation of people with mental illness.
It's also appalling that homeless shelters, refuges and boarding houses are now functioning de facto as a major component of the accommodation provided by our society for thousands of Australians affected by mental illness.
The Hunter area was singled out for particular criticism in the report. As revealed by NBN 2 weeks ago, about 200 people with chronic mental illness live in hostels in the Morisset area, just down the road from the region's main psychiatric hospital. Most have no access to rehabilitation programs, and at the time submissions were made to the inquiry, most residents in these hostels had no psychiatric follow-up at all. Brian Burdekin says all boarding houses or similar facilities which have mentally ill people among their residents should be subjected to stringent licensing and regulation by state governments. Those that fully comply with these regulations should be eligible for appropriate financial assistance. Commissioner Burdekin says as a matter of urgency, governments should provide increased funding and resources to integrated mental health services. Initially, the priority must be to redirect funding from high-cost institutions to community mental health services. However, he says some form of long-term institutional care unit should be retained for the small number of people whose psychiatric disability is so severe that they would never be able to live in the community. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It was an optimistic meeting today when Newcastle Council management and unions explained their historic agreement. The best practice partnership has been developed over months of negotiations. While it still has to be ratified by Council and a mass meeting of staff, it's hoped it will be enforced by the end of the month. The agreement sets the scene for the biggest operational changes ever undertaken in Council. By the end of 1994, 10% of Council's workforce will be doing different jobs. The processing of development and building applications will be markedly improved, so too customer relations. There'll also be new services offered.
For instance, anti-graffiti gangs, providing people who can go out to community facilities and undertake some repair work around there. Really tasks that we haven't done in the past.
In exchange for this increased and improved productivity, Council's 1,000 staff will be guaranteed job security and given a substantial pay rise. From the beginning of next month, all employees will receive an extra $30 a week. And that's not all. If productivity continues to increase, another 1% rise will be given in June next year, a further 2% in December and 2.5% in June 1995. It will cost Council more than $3 million over 18 months, but General Manager Bill Grant is confident it will be worth it. The Best Practice Partnership is possibly the most significant industrial agreement ever embarked on by a local government organisation. While private enterprise has been quick to adopt the scheme, Newcastle is the state to do so.
I think this is really the best way local government can go.
The Municipal Employees Union and Council believe the agreement will benefit all concerned. It will cover the next 18 months of operation and will be continually reviewed by both parties. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
There are 9 pubs and 4 clubs in Singleton. That's with just 12,000 people. And this week another watering hole is opened in the coal mining and farming town.
Well, the recession stopped at Branxton. It hasn't hit Singleton.
Across the river in Singleton Heights is the town's second RSL club, a $4.8 million facility. In the planning for nearly 5 years, it received some opposition from a nearby school, but the club is now surging ahead in leaps and bounds. The club shares management and a licence with the other RSL. It boasts 3 bars, a bistro and conference facilities. Singleton is the only town of its size to have 2 RSLs. Management says there won't be any competition between the clubs. In fact, a third RSL is already in mind for 2010. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Whitebridge High near Newcastle plan to enrol the first Year 7 students in the specialised sports education program from next year. The subject would involve classroom lessons in areas such as sports psychology, nutrition and coaching, as well as practical sessions, and would become a training tool for the region's talented young players. The Northern Soccer Federation says it prepared and presented a detailed proposal outlining its involvement with the scheme. The Education Department claims it's yet to receive any official documentation. A departmental spokesperson today said such an idea would have to go before the Board of Studies, where it would face strict guidelines before approval was given. In response, General Manager of the Northern Soccer Federation, Gary Screen, said he believed correct procedures had been followed. Mr Screen said he would wait for an official statement from the Education Department before commenting further on the matter.
Newcastle's lights are on and there are plenty of people working as the countdown continues to the local government conference. The illumination of Lehman Street could become permanent if ratepayers like the improvement. Organising Chairman, Councillor Frank Rigby, says preparations for the event are falling into place.
We've had our last meeting this morning and there's nothing that we've left unturned. It's everything. We've gone right through everything we can possibly do, and the only thing that we've got to worry about now is the weather.
An army of tradespeople are working to complete the Civic Theatre refurbishment at the same time as preparations for the official opening of the conference. Sprucing up the forecourt between the City Hall and Administration Building is also seeing grit and grime removed by a high-pressure cleaner. Councillor Rigby believes the city's preparations will impress all delegates.
What you've got are the shakers, the movers and shakers from all of New South Wales are here. And if they're not impressed with what they see, well, I'll tell you they'll need a lot of impressing. I've been to a lot of conferences, as you know. I've never seen anything with the preparation that we've done with this one.
The city has already started to benefit before the main event begins. 50 delegates are taking part in the Regional Galleries Association annual meeting, which began today. Timing of the event purposefully done to coincide with the state LGA event.
The New Lambton branch of the Newcastle Permanent Building Society had only just opened this morning when a man carrying a shortened shotgun burst through the door. He demanded money from two tellers, placing the cash in a plastic bag. An accomplice was double parked outside the branch. Both fled in this stolen vehicle, which was later found abandoned in a car park at Garden City Shopping Centre. The motor was left running, but there were few witnesses. Police have described the first man as around 175 centimetres tall, of medium build. He is in his late 20s, early 30s. He was wearing a zippered brown jacket and a brown Andy Cap-style hat. The other, also believed to be a male, is not described. Police believe the two men may be responsible for at least 3 other armed hold-ups in the Newcastle area. A similar robbery occurred in January at the Greater Newcastle Building Society, also in Regent Street, New Lambton. Again, the stolen getaway car was found abandoned at Garden City at Katara. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Although the Hunter has a range of organisations promoting development in the region, the opposition leader floated the idea of a single body at a Newcastle Chamber of Commerce luncheon.
Without that, there's a very real danger that you get more documents like the one we saw yesterday that simply sees the Hunter as a dormitory suburb for Sydney. I think that's the wrong approach because it doesn't talk about jobs here.
Roads form part of Labor's development plan for the Hunter, with the Newcastle-Dubbo link winning the opposition leader's support. Autonomy for the Port of Newcastle is seen as important for regional development, but Mr Carr is cautious about the move.
The test will be this. If it is going to be beneficial to Newcastle as a number 2 city in this state, then we'll go ahead with it. But we want to be certain there won't be unintended consequences that end up disadvantaging Newcastle. That's our only reservation.
The opposition leader used the region's current bid to win the Navy's Minehunter project to illustrate his state development policy, pointing out he wants an aggressive approach, not expecting the Hunter to win the project because the region believes it deserves it. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Australia's shipwrecks are time capsules of our past. There are 2,000 known wrecks off the New South Wales coast, many regularly visited and picked over by divers. Disturbing wrecks or removing souvenirs and relics from wreck sites 75 years or more old is prohibited under Commonwealth law.
They shouldn't be afraid of coming forward and putting these items on the catalogue.
Obviously some things are quite valuable when you're talking about portholes or old divers' helmets and this type of thing. Do you think there's a bit of a reluctance there for people to give them up?
I think that there is, but let's remember that the Commonwealth don't actually want you to give them up. They just want to know where all these things are and where they've come from.
The New South Wales Department of Arts and Administrative Services declared a 6-month amnesty on the reporting of historic shipwrecks in May. But other than a few notable exceptions around Sydney, little information has surfaced about wrecks and their relics. The program was begun not so much to reclaim artefacts, but to piece together the stories of Australia's lost ships.
It's a 123-kilometre leg from Wollongong to Goulburn. Damien McDonald had time to make a few phone calls to friends. After 8 days, some of the riders were looking for a bit of a change, but overnight leader Poland's Baranowski just wanted more of the same, taking to the steep Macquarie Pass with relish. But the race was far from over. 10 kilometres out, Aussie Rob McEwen put on a break. But the class of Germany's world champion Jan Ullrich came through, the 19-year-old winning a sprint for the line ahead of teammate Weissman. Just 3 seconds separates overall leader Ullrich from Baranowski in the closest cycle classic in its 12-year history. The race winds up tomorrow with a leg to Canberra and a criterium around the national capital.
Some of the circuit's big names arrived this afternoon and headed straight for Merewether to get a feel for the local break. And it appeared to be to their liking. This was only number 2 seed Jake Patterson's second wave. Patterson knows he has to be in form for this weekend's competition. Points are vital for survival for next year's circuit.
This will be just as hard as any of the other ones because everyone's over here from all over Australia to do the last of these contests, the ACC circuit, so it's just going to be as hard as any one other contest.
Current World Open champ Grant Frost was pretty confident until disaster struck late this afternoon.
I snapped one of my favourite boards, the one that I was riding for the last month or so. It was really, really good, and the nose just blew apart on it. It's 2 pieces now.
Get the feel for his backup board. His first heats are early tomorrow morning, but he knows one thing might go in his favour. An expected offshore wind will clean up the Dixon Park swell.
You can be losing your heat and pick up a really good ride in the slop and go from 4th to 1st straight away, but when you're in bigger surf and you start out with 4 strong ones, it's really hard for somebody to peg you back from there.
The first heats are from tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
They came dressed for the occasion, not black tie, but black leathers. The Harley-Davidson Cafe is a tribute to the machine perhaps best known from the movie Easy Rider. One of the stars of the film, Peter Fonda, was at the launch.
Many people have come to me and said, man, you know, you really changed my life. Look at this poor guy, you know, he's got a beard in the slop. You can hardly see his eyes. He's been riding for 4 years. And,
Not every cafe has a petrol tank light, but then to be a Harley-Davidson rider, you have to be a little different, even in New York. Peter Fonda summed up his passion for the Harley: it's big, it's loud, and I love it.
It was a busy conclusion to the local government conference, with the final 30 matters for discussion canned this afternoon when time ran out. Most debate today taken up with a call by Shoalhaven Council from the South Coast, supported by Lake Macquarie and several Sydney councils, for legislation to control cats. Under the plan, all moggies will have to be registered, and domestic cats over the age of 6 months will have to be desexed unless they're bred for show purposes. Legislation could be in place quickly.
To assist our state government, we've actually done some draft legislation, so they won't have such a lot of work to do. It's already there for them. I mean, it probably needs a bit of tidying up, but the majority of the work has already been done by us.
Meantime, hoteliers are to be reminded local councils also have to approve variations to trading hours. Conference delegates supporting Muswellbrook Council's push for action on the matter.
Well, I believe it's been a matter of ignorance where there's, through the Liquor Administration Board, the approval of extension of trading hours have been approved by the board, but not having been reported to councils.
The four-day conference concluded this afternoon with a presentation of a plaque to Newcastle Lord Mayor Councillor John McNaughton by the LGA to mark Newcastle's hosting of the event.
Heidi Dietz is enjoying the fruits of her labour. She's been playing the violin since the age of 5. Next year she's planning to study overseas, but it's an expensive exercise and luckily her talent has been recognised. At 21 she's won 2 scholarships, one from Rotary's Ambassador program, the other from Newcastle's Conservatorium of Music.
Shocked, in a word. Yeah, I was thrilled. I just thought this, and in the same week, it happened in the same week, I thought this can't be happening because I've wanted to go overseas.
Heidi is waiting for news from music colleges in England, America and Switzerland. And when her tuition is over,
I'd like to come back to Australia and apply for different orchestras, the Australian Chamber Orchestra, the Australian Opera and Ballet Orchestra.
a Bachelor of Music student, Heidi's now preparing for final exams, and that means hours of practice on her beloved Galliano-designed violin.
You keep practicing until somebody says, that sounds good. If nobody ever says it, then you think, oh, what am I doing? Practicing. So I think just the fact that it makes me feel this is, I'm achieving something.
More than a third of Tetron's work is for our Defence Forces. The standard of the company's work has been rewarded with a Quality Assurance Certificate from the Defence Forces. Defence Organisation Director General Ron McLaren says the accreditation means Tetron is capable of work to international standard.
We see this as extremely important as a means of ensuring that the supplies and services provided to the Australian Defence Force meet our stringent requirements.
Amongst the contracts being carried out by the company, reconditioning of crankshafts for the Navy's Fremantle-class patrol boats and Leopard tanks used by the Army. John Tetron believes this recognition will put the company in a unique position.
We'll be the only general engineering and engine reconditioner in Australia which will be quality assured to Defence Force standards.
The Defence certification comes hot on the heels of Tetron's winning a National Industry Award.
The long-running dispute is over proposed changes to the way certain staff procedures are carried out at universities. They include conditions affecting unsatisfactory performance, serious misconduct and redundancy.
Local staff are feeling angry and I think low morale about it. What we're doing is not being valued, and then we're looking at procedures for getting rid of us on an arbitrary grounds, and I think people are angry, yes.
Meetings have been held across the country. Today, Newcastle University staff voted to support a national ban on the processing of exam results. They claimed the Australian Higher Education Industry Union, of which university executives are members, is trying to undermine their negotiated award conditions. Employers argue their hands are tied when it comes to discipline.
People have been
demonstrated to have committed theft or physical violence or sexual harassment or fraud, and there's been a consistent failure to get even such people as this dismissed.
It's students who'll be seriously affected if the ban goes ahead. End-of-year exams start next week, and although all papers will be marked, for most students they won't be processed.
The students who need their exam results to get a job or to go home to their country of origin, it means probably nothing because they will be exempted.
The issue will go before the Industrial Relations Commission tomorrow. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Imagine Newcastle's Marathon Stadium a metre deep in rubbish. That's how much Royal Newcastle Hospital no longer throws away each year. Instead, everything that can be is recycled. Glass, office paper, cardboard. The hospital also tries to buy products that are not overpackaged or are themselves made from recycled goods. As well as reducing the hospital's need for landfill, it's already saved itself money, $28,000 since the waste management program was introduced a year ago.
People are now actually paying us for our garbage instead of us having to pay for its disposal, which is a wonderful thing.
Any organisation willing to take up the Royals' challenge to reduce waste is welcome to have a first-hand look at how the hospital's succeeding.
The Kiwis are padding up for a titanic struggle. Already on tour, they've lost 3 out of 3.
It's obvious by our results. We haven't performed well. It's as simple as that. There's no real excuses.
The Kiwi manager has called for his players to get off their butts and treat the Blues like the enemy. Mark Greatbatch is still out injured. But limbering up on Newcastle's #1 sports ground, a team of cricketers hoping to impress selectors with the first test in 2 weeks.
A couple of young guys, especially a couple of young fast bowlers who'll be looking to grab a couple of wickets to maybe push for selection in that first test team.
Glenn McGrath has only played 6 first-class games and he's on the short list. Wayne Holdsworth also hoping to snare a few wickets. Michael Bevan is in the 11 after a month out with a broken foot. He wasn't taking too many chances at training. The 4-day match starts tomorrow. One Kiwi jokingly quipped, "I hope we can get more than 50. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
See if I can get it.
Smoke billowing from an electrical fire in a ground floor room and a drenching from the automatic sprinkler system forced the evacuation of the building just after 7. The fire was a small one confined to an electrical substation, but it struck at the nerve centre of the paper's operations, downing computer lines in the press, halting production on Friday morning's paper.
It's ironic, isn't it? We can have an earthquake and the day of high drama and we got a paper out, and quite an extraordinary paper too it was. I really can't recall when we've had this sort of problem.
Staff were back on the job today using backup equipment for a bumper Saturday paper. The press was rolling this afternoon for the extra magazine articles, features and form guides.
Having made the decision that we couldn't publish, we're now planning something fairly special tomorrow to provide the Friday features for our readers.